What's going on, everybody? It's just another day in the kitchen, back with another episode, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at none other than 21 Savage, aka the Saint Laurent Don, and some unexpectedly dope merch surrounding his newest album, American Dream. Now before we get started, I wanted to give a special shout out to the homie Strain Beats, who's been cooking up the beats for these videos, and while you're here, you might as well drop a like and subscribe, and join our free Discord to stay up to date with the latest and the greatest. We're only 100 subs from 5,000, so make sure you guys get ready for this giveaway. Now if you're anything like myself, when you hear 21's music, the last thing that probably crosses your mind is what his merch looks like. However, it was after the release of this last album and listening to the newest songs such as Nina and Red Rum that I decided to take a look. And to be honest, I was actually pleasantly surprised. And while we've seen a ton of lazy merch together, I think it's a great start that they're using 21's iconic dagger tattoo, as you guys can see on his forehead, throughout this collection. Because that dagger has been a theme and a common motif throughout 21's entire career. Now something that might be a reach right here is this American Dream tee here in the center that features the machetes. However, as a Florida boy, when I first look at it, the first thing that comes to mind is some Kodak Black Haitian influence. Now I'm not gonna lie, when I first hopped into 21's merch drop, I wasn't sure what to expect just because he hasn't really pushed his merch. However, like I said at the beginning of this video, I was actually pleasantly surprised. And it starts off with this dope graphic tee featuring a skeletal Lady Liberty with the American flag upside down. I also wanted to point out that this font right here for this American Dream also kind of reminds me of the font that The Weeknd uses, however that might also be a reach. The other thing I wanted to point out is that shipping on this one looks like it's about 3 months out, with shipping starting in April. Now when it comes to my favorite piece from this collection, it's definitely got to be the Savage tee right here. I believe it's a tribute piece to Young Thug in the way that he's fighting his YSL Rico and Savage is supposed to stand for something else, and the description also says Young Thug. The other thing that's dope I wanted to point out is the punk influence here and the way that they stylize the word American Dream. If you're not familiar right now, we're looking at the iconic album cover of British rock punk band the Sex Pistols, who helped popularize and make use of the whole magazine cutout punk style font that you guys can see here. And to me, this is just another cool example of the overlapping and influences of different genres such as punk, metal, rock, and things like that seeping over into hip hop. Now this next American Dream tee right here is honestly a classic if you're familiar with kind of bootleg designer designs that have been floating around really since the 80s. Now if you're looking at that and you're unfamiliar with the color scheme, it's of course a tribute to Gucci and the double G's right here. And although 21 calls himself the Saint Laurent Don, I think that this was honestly a really dope piece. Now next up in this collection, we've got some unique merch pieces which we honestly don't see drop too often, in the form of both a baseball jersey and a football jersey. And starting off with this baseball jersey, I couldn't tell you a whole lot about it as I'm not super hip to the sport, but honestly I feel like it's a pretty clean piece. I do know that 21 of course reps Atlanta, so perhaps the red and white is influenced by the Atlanta Braves, however I would expect to see perhaps more some blues in there as well. Now to follow up that baseball jersey, we've got a unique football jersey which I haven't seen an artist drop before. One thing I think is good about this one is that in the product description it does let you know that this is a mesh football jersey, which means it's going to be a bit more breathable, and some stylistic things I wanted to highlight are just the different uses of the fonts that we see here, which I honestly really appreciate. Just from looking at this, it kind of reminds me of like an old English style, which you see traditionally kind of reserved for like the whole goth or emo scene. So I think that this is again another dope piece where you have some kind of overlap with both of those worlds. Now as for the third and final item on this row, we've also got this dope eagle long sleeve, which at first glance makes sense given that it's of course the American Dream and the eagle theme. However, when I first looked at it, the first thing I thought of was none other than Travis Scott's Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight. And although it might be a little bit of a reach, I just wanted to show you guys in comparison what his merch looked like back then, and I think it's cool that you can see both the use of the eagle as well as that newspaper style clipping font that we saw used a little bit earlier. And something else I wanted to point out is that a lot of these retail prices are pretty reasonable, with the tees being around $45 and the last long sleeve being $55, which is about fair for most prices nowadays. Now the next piece that stood out to me from this collection that I wanted to talk about and highlight is this double layer long sleeve. I don't know about you, but when I first saw it, I immediately thought Donda. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, it was during Kanye West's Donda listening party that he had one of these merch pieces, which included this double layer long sleeve. And again, I might be reaching, however, when you look at that product photo, you can't tell me it's not reminiscent of what Kanye was doing with his Donda merch. And in addition to that double layered long sleeve, we've also got some more winterwear options such as these hoodies. Now, I never understand how they justify price jumps from 90 to 120 to even 150 that we sometimes see. However, I think the biggest justification is of course things like the material or the designs. And it's really while I'm glancing over some of these pieces that again I think it's a shame that they don't give the artist credit, because I think that this is another cool one. And if this was something that was embroidered, it's something that I would actually maybe pick up myself. However, as you can see, this one is screen printed. And while you're watching this video, I'd love to know in the comments if any of these pieces so far are a cop or a drop for you. Now, the Saint Laurent Don of course had to make sure that all of his fans were dripped out head to toe, so of course they had some headwear options as well, such as a fitted cap featuring his dagger logo, this kind of vintage looking frayed dad hat, but it's this bootleg Chrome Hearts bucket hat at the end here that really caught my attention. And honestly, depending on the quality of the faux leather, this bucket hat might be a cool pickup for both fans of hip hop and fashion. Now, if you're wondering what the heck the Chrome Hearts bucket hat is that I mentioned earlier, I wanted to include the original for reference right here. And when you compare the $50 retail price for this bootleg Chrome Hearts bucket hat to the thousands that it would cost you to cop the one in this photo right here, I honestly think that this is a fun little novelty item for any fan of 21 as well as high fashion. Now, to wrap up this collection, we've also got some interesting items with another Chrome Hearts bootleg dice set that'll only cost you a cool retail price of about $25. Now, you might be wondering what the significance is of Chrome Hearts, and the whole thing about their brand is their use of fine silver, so I just wanted you guys to see in comparison how 21's collection here is inspired. And just to show you guys the real deal, you can get a pair of Chrome Hearts dice for a cool $1,000. So for $25, this one is a cool alternative, I think. And to wrap up this collection, it would only make sense that we've got some 21 Savage playing cards to complement the dice, as well as a baby onesie, and for whatever reason, a hair bonnet. Now, if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Like I said at the beginning, I wasn't quite sure what to expect because it was just a 21 Savage merch drop, but I honestly was pleasantly surprised, and I thought that there were a good variety of items. And you know I couldn't end the video without shouting out Young Thug, so free him one time. Now, as always, thank you so much for cooking with the kitchen, and remember to stay safe out there, guys. And remember, it's lit. Straight up, and peace.